I would like to ask?
Stuart, I have a question. Look,
Yes.
um, surrender is an important part of this practice. I hear many times. I have a few questions about that. Um, surrendering, surrendering to what? Is it surrendering to the pain in our life, to the universe, our soul? What else can it be? Um, and
It's,
also, is
it's
it is it
Luke. All right, go ahead, finish up. But
well? Also, is it a conceptual thing, or is there something we can do to make it really an experience, a
you
living?
know, the only way I can answer that is I can tell you how much water can you put in a glass. Eventually, the glass is going to run over, and the problem here is that when we're full of ourselves, when we're full of all our tension, our insecurity, our guilt, our problems, even happiness and joy, when we're just full of ourselves, dealing with an egocentric system and dealing with all of that stuff that really creates chaos in a human being, there's no room for spirit to come into you. So, in order to develop the chakra system, this Shakti, the spirit, the higher force, has to come into your system. And in order for that to work, you have to let go. You have to let go of all the things that are blocking the flow of that energy, all the things that are creating chaos inside you, tension, you know, and that's what surrender is all about. You can only put so much water in a glass. And if the glass is full of you and all your tension, there's no room for higher energy, spirit, to come and help to develop the chakra system and help to develop your connection with higher energy, God, with whatever you want to call it, you know? So that's what surrender is all about. Surrender is about transformation. It's about change. It's about truly building a system in oneself that is strong enough and developed enough to have a spiritual life. You know, the word surrender has, it often has connotations giving up. I'm giving up and I'm going to jail. I surrender. But this meaning of surrender is very different. It means letting go of the obstructions, the problems, the tension, the chaos, building a system inside that makes you capable of doing this so that you can receive spirit, connection with what's infinite in the universe that will nurture you and help you to grow as a human being.
Yes, I understand that we have to let go of the desires of the ego. uh, That's what's causing all the pain and suffering.
Well, it's one of the big causes, you know, power, money,
Yeah, these things, desires.
desire, all of these things are big causes. And it's not that we shouldn't have ambition in the world. You understand? But
Mhm.
instead of the ambition being a form of God, when I get married, when I'm going to have family, when I'm going to get the house, the car, the this, everything's going to be okay. And it doesn't work like that. You understand? There's always stuff, and the stuff exists because we haven't let go of the core of the problem, which is deep inside ourselves. And then we hold on to all these objective things, thinking they're the answer, and they're not.
Yes, I understand there has to be a rejection of the negativity we create ourselves, but is there also something positive we can work towards?
Well, the positive thing is becoming a happy person. That's a very positive thing.
Yeah, yeah.
Developing a spiritual life, being connected to God, spirit, allowing higher energy to guide your life instead of your ego. So that through that guidance, you can work out your karma and work out all elements that you are born here to learn and to get free of.
Okay. So how can we distinguish between the guidance from our ego and the guidance from spirit?
Well, guidance from spirit will open your heart. There'll be love. There'll be guidance from ego will create a lot of problems in your life. That's how you can distinguish.
Okay.
You know, look, I say it over and over again. There's only one person in order to have a spiritual life that we need to get free of, and that's ourselves. Because once we master our inner life, the whole world around us changes. We begin to see life differently. Nothing is negative anymore. Everything is an opportunity to learn how to grow and develop a spiritual life. So even the negativity becomes something that we use as a force of learning instead of, it consuming us and destroying us and taking over. And once that opening takes place, positive and negative dissolve into, it's like a dialectic. They become something else. Because positive and negative are just the functions of the human mind. That's how the mind sees the world, positive and negative. And as long as we see the world that way, there's going to be both conflict inside ourselves and conflict in the world. Now, you can't change the world. Nobody can. That's God's problem, But you can change yourself so that you begin to envision a different kind of reality. It's all your teacher. It's teaching you what you need to do to grow and to learn in your life. So instead of bitching and complaining about it, we say, okay, I will bow to my teacher, even the negative stuff. Say, okay, what am I learning here? What is it teaching me about me? Why am I attracting this? What about me is attracting that negativity? And yes, there's a lot of craziness in the world. And I had discovered years ago, I can't change that. And the only way that craziness in the world is going to change, the poverty, all that stuff, people starving, wars going on, the people doing all this nonsense and madness, they have to change inside. Will that ever take place? The whole world? No, I don't think so. But
Yeah,
we can change.
But then we are expecting something from somebody else. Eh?
No, well, yeah, we're
There's
expecting.
also a lot of good in the world.
Yes, there's a lot of good in the world. But there's also that stuff that goes on that is completely out of our control. And then, look, 20,000 people get killed in a war that makes no sense. It's ridiculous. But how do you change that unless these people want to change? You can only help people that want to help themselves.
Yeah, so we can help ourselves, actually.
We can help ourselves. We can grow. We can begin to recognize that whatever we experience in the world, it is teaching us something about us. I think there's a war going on in every human being. Every human being. Otherwise, there wouldn't be tension. And wars, poverty, people starving, it all reflects the spiritual malnourishment inside of every human being. And that's what is projected onto the world. People have to change in order for the world to change. Not saying there isn't good. Yes, there are many wonderful people. I mean, I'm looking, sitting in front of a group of very wonderful people who are here to learn how to get to God. So the whole point of all of this is we have to fix what is, inside ourselves. And then we see a different world. Look out at the world differently. We recognize it's all a manifestation of spirit, of higher energy, and its purpose is to teach us about ourselves and how we need to grow and we need to change. We need to have more compassion. We need to have more empathy with the struggles of human beings. And suddenly we're living in a different world. I mean, and I can't talk from just having read about this in books. And it's basically what I went through in my life that brought all of this realization about. The years of struggling with my own conflicts and tension and problems and all the wars, the Stewart wars that were going on inside me. My, disaffection with life and all the craziness I saw in the world and not knowing how to fix it. And finally I said, Stewart, you can't. I had a conversation with God like that. I said, this is your world. You have to fix it. I cannot fix this world, but I can fix myself. I can grow spiritually. I can be connected. And then I can work with people that come and that want to learn the things that I have learned in my life. And my job is to pass them on. But I can't pass them on to people that don't want to learn this.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's reincarnation. And people have 1,000 lifetimes to suddenly realize why the hell they're born on the earth. They're born here to learn, to transform all the suffering into joy, into love, into kindness, to empathy, compassion for other human beings. I hope this is clear. This is such a basic element of everybody's experience every day. And it's easy to complain about life. It's very difficult to fix oneself. There's so much wrong in this world. It doesn't take a genius to pick out what's wrong in life. It takes a remarkable human being to fix the chaos in themselves and get to a place where they really attain the highest levels of their humanity. There's love, there's joy, there's compassion, there's all the things I talk about, kindness. Does anyone else have a question they would like to ask?
Thank you, Stewart.
You're welcome, Luke. Very good question. Appreciate you asking it.
Stuart, I have a question. Um, Something that pops up in my mind as I'm doing the practice, again and again, different ways, different times, different frequencies, is twofold. One is, am I doing it? Is it happening? And the second thing of kind of this question of futility around how will you know? And I'm curious if you could talk about some of that in the journey, in the beginning part, or the starting up process of this journey.
So you want to know make it a little simpler what you're asking.
Yeah, I think what I'm asking is how to maintain endurance through doubt.
Well, you look, I mean, if you want to learn anything in life, you have to study it and work at it over a long period of time. You have to build a system inside that makes all the elements of what you're studying clear. And this is no different. The only way you can maintain this and truly, develop this through your life is that you've got to build a chakra system inside that's strong enough to do it. That's what the meditation classes are about, getting training. I mean, if you want to be, a tennis player, you got to get training. Those young kids from the age of 4 years old, they're trained until they're playing professional tennis, and they become, masters at what they're doing, The same way with baseball, with football, if you want to be an actor. I used to study acting when I was younger. And it required training. When I first stepped into the class, I had no freaking idea what I was doing. When I first sat down with Rudy, I hadn't an idea what I was doing. And then the second, the third, the 50th, the 100th class, a steady diet of inner work made things clear. The chakra system developed, the strength inside developed to begin to see how this not only works internally, but it works practically in my everyday life. But you got to get the training. I mean, I think you're a musician, right? Well, you should understand what I'm talking about. You don't just go and play a guitar or a trombone. You got to learn how to do it. And then, I mean, there are very great musicians that I respect and have deep love for, but the years of training that enabled them to develop that capacity to play music like that, I mean, it's mind-boggling what they had. And this is much more difficult because you're dealing with the one person that is the most difficult person to deal with, yourself. And it takes time to master oneself. You have to get training. You have to come to classes. I mean, when I met Rudy, I spent 9 years of my life chanting and praying and pleading with God to give me an answer, to get to a place where I had some kind of inner peace. And then I met, 9 years later, I met Rudy, and he had my answer. Because it wasn't just love, peace, and eat vegetables. It wasn't that kind of, it was a real technique to use to be able to transform the things that were killing me and myself into life-giving energies. And I said, I have to learn this. I said, whatever it takes and whatever I have to do, I have to learn this. And it took commitment, it took time, it took focus, it took years. And then after Rudy took his samadhi, then 20 years later, I think I finally it became clear to me what this is all about. And training and working on myself, developing the capacity to stay connected with God, higher energy. And being a musician is no different. I mean, if you don't keep learning and growing in it, it gets flat, gets stale, right? Being an artist, it's the same thing. If you don't master it and keep changing in it, it gets stale. And I know that from writing. If every book is exactly the same, they become stale. So you have to keep growing in whatever life things you do. And it's the same way with spirit. You have to keep growing, or anything you attain becomes stale if you don't surrender it and let it go and let a new level of energy come into you. I always kid around. I mean, I even put it in this book I'm writing. A saint's got to surrender his sainthood if he wants enlightenment. A guru, his gurudom. And this is very difficult because most people that attain those levels forget about it, They're there to be worshipped. A criminal is criminality. And whatever you attain, there's always a higher level. Because the energy of God, spirit, is infinite. There's no limit. And, we should be in no position to create a conceptualized version of it, a limited version of it that kind of fits into the world as we understand it. One of the greatest things that happens is eventually you don't understand anything. You just live every day. And every day is an extremely powerful, sacred moment of the new manifesting in one's life.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Does anyone else have a question?
Sorry, Stuart, I know, is there time for another question? Do you mind?
Oh, there is plenty of time. I am in no rush. Ask your question.
It was just following from the first question, when you said about not being able to change what happens in the world, and that's God's business in a way. And I just wondered if you can speak about how we can bear the unbearable. Some aspects feel unbearable, and how to
yes. Look, yes, it's unbearable, and it's madness that goes on in this world, and for no reasonable and rational reason. It's people's egos, it's people's minds. People want to kill each other. And then it gets into racial nonsense and religious nonsense, and my religion's better than your religion, and my race is better than. It's all crazy. Yes. And I discovered that I can deal with this by having gotten to a place in myself where I'm strong enough to be able to recognize that it's all bullshit. And if I change inside myself and these other people change inside themselves, you understand, the whole world changes. But if these other people don't change, I have to be strong enough to allow, myself to live with that and to still keep my heart open and to have compassion for these people and empathy for these people who are living in a world where their hearts aren't open and they're just angry at everybody and everything. And I believe if you change yourself, the world around you changes. I'll tell you a story. I used to go to India a lot. I used to have a lot of business there and teachings, and they published my books in Mumbai, and I used to give lectures there. And I used to go about 4 times a year to India. And I used to have to deal with a lot of Islamic people while I was there because they were in the business that I was in. And I had a partner. He and I used to buy a lot of stuff together. He was a Muslim, and we were very good friends. And he invited me to his home one day. And he said, my parents and my wife's parents, they want to meet you. They're having a big brunch. And they asked if you could come. So I went. I'll never forget this as long as I live. I stepped into the living room of their apartment, and there were 4 men in the apartment that looked exactly like Osama bin Laden. They had the same costumes, the same beards, the same everything. And I stepped in, I started to laugh to them. I didn't get upset. I just laughed. I said, here I am, a Jewish guy from the Bronx, here in the middle of And anyway, they could not have been nicer to me. They asked me all about what I teach and how, I had a healing session with the daughter of my business partner, not the daughter, the wife of my business partner. And she had some kind of illness that no doctor in Mumbai could figure out what the hell was wrong with her. I did one session with her and it went away. And I was starting getting calls from all over Mumbai to do healings with people. It was really unbelievable, And when I went to this house, they were so interested in what I did. It had nothing to do with Hinduism, Muslim, Jewish. It was, what do you do? How can we learn something about this? And I was so taken, and it was so moving inside me. And I realized that most of it had to do with how open I was in myself. That in no way did I intimidate any of these people. Did I say anything negative about what they believed in? I respected it 100%, 1,000%. I mean, I sat down at they served food. It was a big platter of food, and you ate with your hands. And I sat down there, and they kept putting the best pieces of everything in front of me. It was so moving to me and so beautiful. And also largely because I was open and I wasn't there judging them in their life and their religion. I was open to learn from them. It was a memorable experience. It was extraordinary, just a brunch. And it was completely extraordinary. So what you give off comes back. What you give off, your chemistry, your inner life, what you give off, it comes back to you. And if you give off prejudice and all kinds of religious dogma and this about other human beings, that's what comes back. That's what comes back. And it's an interesting story how I met these people, but I won't go into too long a story. I mean, it's an extraordinary story how I met these people. I mean, but it'll just too long to go. Maybe some other day I'll tell you the rest of the story. It's just unbelievable. But it's what we give off to the world that is exactly what comes back to us. If we give off hate and rage and anger, that's what comes back. If we're prejudiced, that's what comes back. If we're angry, that's what comes back. If we give off love and caring and empathy and compassion for other human beings and respect for their beliefs, that's what comes back.
Thank you.
It becomes a very different world. Does anyone else have a question they would like to ask? So when I was younger, I lived in Morocco for a very long time, and I loved being there. It was like living in the Bible then, it was something unbelievable. And I learned something about the Islamic religion, and it's a guest is God. And this is fundamental to their religion. You treat people who are guests in your house like they're God. And I think this is something we all need to learn, You all are a reflection of God to me. And I have to treat you with the deepest amount of respect and provide the deepest teachings I can possibly teach. Because every single person here is a child of God. Does anyone else have a question they would like to ask? Okay, if there are no, I just want an announcement. Next, not this Sunday, but I think it's around the 10th, there'll be no meditation class because I'm having a retreat that weekend. There will be class this Sunday. Also, there's a retreat coming up in February. I think it starts around the 23rd of February, that weekend. And it's the celebration of Rudy Samadhi. And I know there are people already signing up from Israel and from Brazil and from the United States. And if you want to come, please let me know. You're very welcome. And, and the only problem with this is I don't have the kind of space I used to have. I have a living room in an apartment that could fit maybe about 17 people. So if you want to come, let me know, and I'll put your name down. And I think it should be quite an amazing weekend. So God bless you all, and thank you. And there'll be class on Sunday, and I'm looking forward to seeing everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, Stuart.
Thank you too.
Thank you.
God bless you.
Thank you, sir.
Yes. Fantastic.